I am not an expert in nutrition, diabetes or human physiology, but I do know how someone with diabetes can achieve normal blood glucose levels. I am just an ordinary mother who will do whatever it takes to keep my child healthy. Before diabetes entered our life, we ate the standard Australian diet. We ate our fair share of breakfast cereal, pasta, bread, crackers, ice cream, rice and potatoes. We drank disgusting low-fat milk, ate low-fat everything and even ate margarine. I will forever regret feeding that to my family. My son Daniel was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes in November 2012, a couple of weeks before his 13th birthday. He was very fortunate to be referred to an excellent doctor who put him on an insulin pump straight away. He was hospitalised for 5 days and I stayed with him. During that time, in between my crying, I launched into researching ways to prevent diabetic complications on the internet. As my husband and I work in healthcare, we have seen hundreds of patients with diabetic complications, so we were not feeling terribly confident at that point. And after the diabetic dietitian told us, there is no such thing as a diabetic diet anymore, you can eat whatever you want, even McDonald's, I was absolutely distraught. As a mother who had just been told that the pride and joy of my life had an incurable deadly disease, I was not going to accept eating McDonald's as nutritional advice. Whilst researching, I came across many testimonies from type 1 diabetics who achieved normal blood glucose levels and therefore normal everything else by eating a low-carb, high-fat diet. This made perfect sense to me. Eat lots of food which digest into glucose. Your blood glucose goes high, you speed up the rate of glycation and therefore diabetic complications. An alcoholic is not told to have 3 serves of healthy alcohol each day because that would be stupid. Someone with a peanut allergy is not instructed to eat peanuts with every meal and then shoot up with an EpiPen because that would kill them. So why are diabetics who are carbohydrate intolerant told to base their meals on carbohydrates? It's almost as if diabetics are being purposely set up to fail. And so began our journey into the bizarre and frustrating world of diabetes. I began by purging all grain, sugar, industrial oils and processed food from my kitchen. I started with simple low-carb meals and after about 2 weeks post-hospital discharge, I had Daniel's blood glucose levels mostly in normal range. And then I discovered the wonderful world of low-carb, high-fat cooking and learnt that by substituting ingredients, I could make most of the meals my family loved, but without the blood glucose spike. Here are some examples of food suggestions as recommended by various leading diabetes organisations: fruit, porridge, pasta, rice, bread and table sugar. Here are some snack suggestions which a person with a PhD says is suitable for diabetics to eat to stabilise their blood sugars. I don't have a PhD, but I do know these foods will not stabilise blood sugars. If the aim of diabetes management is to prevent hypoglycemia and to slow the rate of glycation and oxidation, then why are diabetics instructed to eat massive amounts of sugar and toxins? My son learnt in Year 8 science that complex carbohydrates digest into sugar. I choose to feed my family meals which do not raise blood glucose levels significantly. Here are some examples of low-carb meals I cook. I aim for low-carb, high healthy fat and moderate protein meals and snacks. I make crustless quiche, pancakes, waffles and bacon cups the night before and just heat them up in the morning. I make my son bacon and egg rolls to eat after rowing training on the way to school. Toasted sandwiches made with my homemade grain-free bread, grain-free cereal, muffins and scrolls are also good options. These contain vegetables, protein and fat. I bake batches of chicken or burgers and freeze them to save time or use leftovers from dinner. These could be prepared the night before. Sandwiches and rolls. I have many delicious recipes for bread. All are wheat and grain-free. Instead of wheat, I use coconut flour, various nut flours and various seeds such as chia, sesame, flax and pumpkin. I bake several varieties of bread such as ham and cheese, garlic and cheese, fake rye and fake multigrain bread. Almost anything can be converted into a low-carb dish. Examples are cannelloni, chicken schnitzel, lasagna, fried chicken, pad thai, shepherd pie, Singapore chicken rice enchiladas, curries and soups, bakes and stir-fries. Even pizza, chips and spaghetti can be made low-carb using the right ingredients. On Saturday nights, I like to cook something a bit more complicated, such as surf and turf, fish and chips and Japanese food. I've even mastered the art of making hollandaise sauce. Desserts can be prepared with natural low-carb sweeteners which do not spike Daniel's blood glucose. Selections here are mousse, cheesecake, trifle, black forest trifle, ice cream, chocolate Bavarian pie. I only use small slices of fruit as a garnish due to the fructose content. More cheesecake, truffles, cakes, slices, puddings, panna cotta and cappuccino ice cream. Keto coffee cake, danishes, green tea mousse cake, fudge cupcakes and chocolate roulade. When we have guests, I don't tell them my food is low carb and they are none the wiser. I have a recipe blog actually. Daniel can cook many low-carb meals such as pizza, chops and vegetables, brownies and tacos. One day he will need to know how to cook for himself, so I'm teaching him now. I can assure you we do not miss out on delicious food or nutrients living the low-carb lifestyle. Here are some of typical examples of Daniel's completely normal blood glucose levels after eating my meals and during fasting. This is not achieved by injecting large amounts of insulin, but by simply eating food which contains small amounts of carbohydrate. There is no legitimate reason for diabetics to have high blood sugars whatsoever. Some of my diabetic friends have been told that it's impossible to have normal blood sugars, but that is a lie. This was Daniel's blood work 12 months after diagnosis. Of course, it's all normal and not what is expected from a type 1. I must point out that he eats butter, cream, bacon, eggs, animal fat, coconut oil, macadamia nut oil and nuts every day. He does not eat margarine, canola or vegetable oil. Here are his past 2 HbA1c results, quite simply the result of eating low-carb foods, therefore slowing the rate of glycation, and has not been achieved by having lots of hypos or by using a truckload of insulin. So how does my son function on a low-carb diet? He has been in the academically advanced class for the past 2 years. He consistently achieves high grades in all subjects. He does not eat 130 grams of carbs per day for brain function. His goal is to study architecture at the University of Queensland after school. He gets out of bed at 4:30 a.m. to go to rowing training 3 times a week. He participates in all school sports. He went on a 4-day hiking camp in the bush, which included rafting, swimming and rock climbing, all whilst carrying his diabetes supplies in his backpack. He can row 6 kilometres at 5:30 a.m. without eating breakfast beforehand. He can do 110 sit-ups in a row. This summer holidays, he'll be training 5 days a week in preparation for the Australian International Rowing Regatta in Sydney next March. Diabetes does not prevent him from doing anything, and he does all this without carb loading or having big hypos. His body is fat adapted. He has never even come close to having a major hypo. The only thing he is being deprived of by eating a low carb diet is a life of miserable diabetes complications. But to anyone who actually believes that people with diabetes should base their diet on complex carbohydrates because they claim they stabilise blood glucose levels, I challenge you to spend just one day with someone with diabetes and feed them breakfast cereal, whole grain sandwiches, rice, pasta and fruit. And watch what happens. They will go on what we call the blood glucose roller coaster. These are the readings of my friend's child with type 1 diabetes who used to eat plenty of complex carbohydrates, high and low all over the place. How can that possibly be interpreted as keeping blood glucose levels stable? Here are the readings of the same child now on a low-carb, high-fat diet. His levels are now a flat line, not a roller coaster. There is just no comparison. I am always astounded when parents of type 1 children or diabetics themselves say eating a low carb is just all too difficult. Too difficult compared to what? Having a retrobulbar anaesthetic injection before multiple sessions of laser therapy for diabetic retinopathy is difficult. Having an ulcer on your foot which never heals, having your leg amputated and being fitted with a prosthetic limb is difficult. Watching your child test his blood 8 times a day is difficult. What diabetic children go through on an hourly basis, 24 hours a day, is difficult. Throwing some bacon and eggs in a pan or preparing a steak and salad cannot be compared to this. Yet diabetic complications can be prevented by simply feeding your child delicious food. Some may want to pass off my son's results as just anecdotal or a one-off fluke, but I am part of a fast-growing community worldwide achieving amazing blood sugar results with a low-carb, high-fat diet. We have rejected the mainstream diet of death and have chosen to give our children the gift of a long and healthy life. I don't have all the answers and sometimes I make mistakes, but there are some things I know for certain about diabetes. It does not have to be a progressive disease. You can achieve normal blood glucose levels easily. Diabetic complications are absolutely avoidable, and a person with diabetes can be fit and healthy and exercise without hypos. So if a teenage boy can test his blood 8 times every day, cook his own low-carb meals, give up bread, rice, pasta, potatoes and junk food, and exercise regularly, then surely anyone can do it. Thank you for listening to my story.